Honorable Minister, DG NSR and his team, senior managers from Minecofin, members of the press, welcome to the announcement of the GDP numbers for the second quarter of 2025. Minister, if you agree, our agenda will be as follows. The DG of National Institute of Statistics will begin by announcing the numbers. Then if you allow, you will also have a small word, and then we'll open the floor to the members of the press for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Minicom, and members of the press. Good afternoon. This afternoon, we want to start by explaining that the National Institute of Statistics recently did the rebasing of GDP. And this is a major activity that we do every 3 years. I probably could explain that rebasing simply means the adjustment of the reference year. In the last number of years, our reference year has been 2017. And so what that means is we look at the growth from that period. So 18 was referring to 17 and continuously. You always have to have a reference year. After a while, every country is expected to adjust that reference year because there are changes that happen in the economy. In Rwanda, we do that every 3 years. So the last time we did it, though, was in 2017. So the plan was to do it in 2020. However, as we all know, that was not a usual year, given what we had. 2, there was some key information which we need for rebasing that we collect from the EICV, which we didn't have at the time. So we postponed the rebasing. Now, that means this rebasing, which has adjusted from 2017 to 2024, is after 7 years. It's still within the recommended time internationally. What's actually recommended is any period between 5 to 10 years. Countries do rebasing. So rebasing is the adjustment of the reference year. Why? Why we do it, as I said, is because there are always changes in the structure and the relevance of different activities in the economy. And I wanted to give a few examples for us to understand. If you think of industry, there are different new industries that come on board over the years into different activities. So new activities. But also if you think of construction, we have realized that over the last 7 years, there have been quite major things happening, major projects in civil engineering, but also in non-residential, including residential. And the value of housing has gone high. The value of land in Rwanda in the last 7 years has gone high. So we need to reflect the changes in prices of things. The same could be said in services. We've seen that if you think of tourism, for example, I'll give that as the example, there have been associated activities happening in the last 7 years. For example, sports activities that bring so many people in the country. These are things which were not there before. So that's why you have to do this kind of exercise to reflect all these changes. In agriculture as well, things have changed. The costs of intermediate inputs have changed dramatically. And that affects the value added in agriculture. And so you have to pause and do that for you to have a better reflective picture of the share and structure of the economy. Now, so what that means is when we do the rebasing, we revise numbers backwards. That's another key message I'm communicating, Minister, that people will see changes in numbers backwards. And I will say that the results of the 2024 rebasing show that the GDP for 2024 went up by 6%. meaning that from the previous published numbers where we had GDP, the level of GDP at 18,785 billion, that's what we had published. This has now changed to 19,918 billion. So that equates to a value of 6% higher in terms of the level of GDP. Now, with that change in the levels of GDP, it implies the computations of growth have also adjusted. The resultant change in growth, in 2024 we had published growth of 8.9, but now with these changes, the growth changed to 7.2. I'll just mention that. You will see the details in the tables that we have shared. So with that, then we can now, Minister, speak about the results for Q2 2025, which is now the current period that we are reporting on. In Q2 of 2025, GDP at current market prices was estimated at 5,798 billion. Services contributed 50% of GDP. Agriculture contributed 23%, while industry contributed 21%, and net direct taxes accounted for 5%. In the quarter 2 2025, GDP increased by 7.8%, following a growth of 6.5% in Q1. Now, 6.5 is a revised number for Q1. Earlier, we had published a figure of 7.8 for Q1. Again, with the rebasing, with the change of the reference year and the adjustments, you revise backwards the numbers. This is a standard practice, and publish those numbers, and we are going to publish, you'll see them. Now, when we look at growth by various sectors, the growth of 7.8 for Q2 is attributed to a growth of 8% in agriculture and 7% in industry, while services increased by 9%. And when we go into the breakdown of those main sectors, for agriculture, we found a growth of 3% for food production, while export crops production increased by 42%. And this is mainly due to the increase of 121% in production of coffee. Some time back, we communicated that there have been changes in coffee production, especially planting new trees. These new trees lead to better yield, and we see that resulting into this increased production as well as growth. However, tea production decreased by 9%. For industry, which I said grew at 7%, the growth there is attributed to mining and quarrying, which increased by 12%. Construction activities increased by 5%. Manufacturing activities increased by 8%. And there are some details which you will find in the tables. Whereas with services increased by 9%, the overall increase. I'll highlight a few things. Under services, wholesale and retail trade increased by 12%. Transport activities increased by 5%. And other services like restaurant decreased by 5%. But also we see that financial services increased by 8%. Information and communication increased by 11%. And some other details. So all the figures presented have been calculated using a new base year or reference year of 2024. Thank you, Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much, Director General Murakoze. Nabanza kubashimira our partners muri media for making time kuza gufatanya natwe kumva aya makuru ajyanye n'imibare y'ubukungu yatangajwe n'ikigo cy'ibarurishamibare. Ndumva without any delay I would open the space kugira ngo abafite ibibazo babaza, especially in relation to the GDP, but at the same time we are happy that we are with the Minister of Commerce as well. Twari mu kandi kazi ariko yumvise ko tugiye kudisseminatinga GDP nawe turazana kugira ngo kurikirana amakuru hafi. So thank you very much. Ask any question. Also, you can ask the Minister of Commerce. This is an opportunity. Kumubaza contribution, industries in our economy. So we can open the floor and get questions, then respond and get other questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Minister. For the members of the media, kindly state your names, the media house you work for, and who you're directing the question to. Thank you.
Murakoze cyane nyakubahwa Minister, nitwa Placide Nyinshuti nkorera RBA. Ikibazo cya mbere ndakibaza kuri imibare mumaze kutugaragariza, aho muvuga ko urwego rw'ubuhinzi bwazamutse 8% muri iki gihembwe cya kabiri. Turifuza kumenya niba icyo bivuze by'umwihariko kuko byakunze kugaragara ko urwego rw'ubuhinzi rwazamukaga gake dukurikije mu bihembwe biheruka. Icyo ni kimwe. Ikindi ndifuza kubaza muri rusange ibirebana n'umusaruro w'inganda. Inganda koko nazo zavuzamutseho 7%, ariko nkanabihuza na raporo yasohotse ku munsi w'ejo ivuga ubucuruzi bw'amahanga cyangwa se ubucuruzi bw'u Rwanda n'amahanga, aho bigaragara ko ibyo u Rwanda rugureza mu mahanga byagabanutse ndetse n'ibyo rutumizo bikagabanuka. Abantu bakibaza bati nibishobora gushyira igitutu ku bijyanye n'ikinyuranyo kiri hagati y'u Rwanda rugureza mu mahanga n'ibitumizwayo, bikaba byagira n'ingaruka ku ifaranga ry'u Rwanda ndetse n'izamuka ry'ibiciro ku masoko. Ubwo muragira icyo mubitubwiraho, Minister ushinzwe inganda n'ubucuruzi yabivugaho, anatubwira uyu musaruro w'inganda ko wiyongera ariko muri iyo raporo tukabona ibyorezo mu mahanga byaragabanutse. Ikindi ubwo ni muri rusange, muri no minsi hari politike mpuzamahanga y'ubucuruzi ya Amerika, aho hari ibiciro cyangwa se hari tariffs President Trump n'ubutegetsi bwe bashyizeho mu bishize. Twumvisha ibihugu bimwe na bimwe n'u Rwanda rurimo bari bongeye 10%. Turifuza kumenya by'umwihariko niba nta ngaruka byageze ku Rwanda, cyane cyane ko hari n'amakuru avuga ko hari ibicuruzwa byorezwa muri Amerika Trump yaba yarasomeye imisoro, harimo nk'amabuye y'agaciro n'ibindi bitandukanye. Ubwo mwatubwira niba hari ingaruka nziza wenda ziri muri ibyo u Rwanda rwabonamo. Ikindi cy'amatsiko, nyuma y'uko ikigega BDF gishyizwe muri BRD, n'ubwa mbere habaye ikiganiro nk'iki ngiki, ayo mavugurura abaye, nabyo twifuzaga ko nka Minecofin yagira ikivuga ku bijyanye n'ibyo twategereza nk'ingaruka nziza ndetse n'impamvu byakozwe nyuma y'ibirego byagiye bishinjwa BDF ko hari serivisi zitatangwa neza, kuba noneho yaragiye muri BRD, niba ari byo twakwizera ko bizigiye gukemuka. Murakoze.
New Times.
The performance of the coffee industry. I saw that there is an increase of more than 120% in coffee production. So I want to get some details about what led to such a growth and what does it mean to the country's agricultural industry, including exports, because most of the coffee the country produces is exported. And regarding the services sector, I can see the hotels and restaurant subsector was hit by decrease, because I can see there is a decrease of 7%. So I want to know what are the underlying factors for such reduction in hotels and restaurant performance. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, maybe we can take on those and then maybe get another set.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I think we'll respond to the explanation behind the agriculture growth, and the other questions probably you can take them. And then the details on coffee and decrease in restaurants. I want to share those questions with my Deputy Director General. This is our new Deputy Director General for NISR, so he will explain those. So for agriculture, as we mentioned, the growth of 8%. If you look at the numbers, it's mainly driven by the export crops, which had a growth of 42% in that quarter. And as we broke it down, coffee had a big contribution. But if you look at food crops, the growth was minimal, was 3%. So the overall 8%, there's a significant contribution by export crops that leads to that. Maybe, Claude, you can proceed with the other details.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. So if I may start with coffee, we have been showing that coffee production was declining since 2021. If you see the numbers, the details, since 2021 we had coffee production which was declining, mainly due to coffee replantation and tree rejuvenating. So we see that this effort now, the period of 3 years, now new trees starting to yield the production and the one that was replanted. So that is the only explanation on coffee. Then coming to hotels and restaurant, this is also a sector where we usually had double-digit growth, meaning a growth of 10%, 20%, 30%, which is hard to maintain for a period like we did over the last 5 years. So we don't see the decline of 7% as a big deal, given that we have been able to maintain this growth over the five years. So these are quarterly numbers. We can maybe be worried if we maintain the decline for another year, but or two consecutive quarters. But we don't see it as a big challenge. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Minister, you want to?
Thank you, Mirioneza. I want to respond to the question asked by Placid, and it's better I speak in Kinyarwanda because the question was also asked in Kinyarwanda. Placid aribaza ibibazo bibiri. Icyambere ni kijyanye n'umusaruro w'inganda. Ikindi ni kijyanye na politike y'ubucuruzi ya Amerika. Ku bijyanye n'umusaruro w'inganda ndagira ngo mbanze nemeze ko hari raporo yasohotse ireba iki gihembwe ukigereranyije n'igihembwe nk'iki umwaka ushize. Iyo ntabwo yagombye kudutera impungenge kubera ko overall performance ni ukuvuga ngo uko inganda zitwaye muri uyu mwaka ushize birashimishije. Dufite raporo ku ku nganda y'umwaka wose dushaka kuzashyira ahagaragara muri iki cyumweru izerekana yuko ari export, ni ukuvuga ibyo twohereza hanze byariyongereye, ndetse n'ikinyuranyo hagati y'ibyo twohereza hanze n'ibyo dukura hanze cyaragabanutse, bivuga yuko icyo twita trade deficit cyangwa se icyo kinyuranyo cyagabanutse muri rusange. Kuba rero twabonye imibare y'igihembwe ntibatera ubwoba, igihembwe kimwe ntabwo kigaragaza ishusho yose y'ubukungu bw'igihugu. Ikindi nagira ngo mvuge ni ku bijyanye na politike ya Amerika nk'uko mwagiye mubikurikirana mu bucuruzi mpuzamahanga. Amerika yashyizeho amahoro ya gasutamo ku bicuruzwa byinjira muri Amerika bivuye mu bihugu byinshi, ariko amahirwe dufite nk'u Rwanda ni uko u Rwanda twashyizwe mu cyiciro cy'ibihugu bizajya byishyura 10%, akaba ari nayo mahoro ari hasi ugereranyije n'ibindi bihugu. Icyo ubwacyo ni amahirwe ku Rwanda, ntabwo twebwe twagombye kuba duhangayikishijwe na kiriya cyemezo. Ikindi nacyo mushobora kuba mukurikirana mu makuru, mu minsi ishize habayeho imishyikirano hagati, ibiganiro biri hagati y'u Rwanda na Repubulika Iharanira Demokarasi ya Kongo, hagaragayemo amasezerano tugomba kuzasinya ajyanye n'ubuhahirane. Hari amasezerano y'amahoro ariko hari n'amasezerano ajyanye n'ubuhahirane. Ayo masezerano akaba yarafashijwemo n'igihugu cya Amerika, bikaba binatanga icyizere yuko mu gihe tuzaba tugiranye ubuhahirane mu karere bishobora kutworohereza kugera ku isoko rya Amerika dufatanyije, ngira ngo niho wagaragaje ibijyanye na politike ya Amerika yo gukuraho amahoro ya gasutamo ku bikomoka ku mabuye y'agaciro Amerika ikeneye. Bivuga ngo ibikomoka ku mabuye y'agaciro muri aka karere twebwe nk'igihugu dushaka kongerera agaciro, bizatworohera kubigeza ku isoko rya Amerika tutagizweho ingaruka n'ibyo biciro by'amahoro ya gasutamo. Numva ari icyo ngicyo nabivugaho. Murakoze.
Murakoze Honorable Minister. Hari ikibazo cya nyuma kijyanye na reform yakozwe ya BDF consolidation muri BRD, Development Bank of Rwanda. Icyo twavuga nuko spirit yatumye dukora iyo reform ni transition tuva muri operations zisa nkaho ziri decentralized, ziri at a small scale ntoya, to consolidating muri operations nini. Nkuko mubizi igihugu cyacu cyane muri private sector cyane yari irimo very small businesses ntoya cyane, ziba zisaba ko zifashwa mu buryo busa nkaho nabo butagutse cyane. Mu myaka 10, 15, 20 ishize, icyo gihe twashyizeho facilities nyinshi zitandukanye cyane zifasha businesses ntoya, ariko uko ubukungu bwacu buzamuka, uko business zacu zaguka, twaje gusanga ko byafasha kurushaho tukonsolidatinze services nyinshi zifasha segments zitandukanye za business community. Harimo small and micro businesses, harimo businesses z'abagore, harimo businesses z'urubyiruko, harimo gufasha gutanga ingwate. Izo services zose zikaba consolidated kugira ngo zitange umusaruro uri hejuru. Kubera iyo mpamvu government yafashe icyemezo ko services zatangwaga na BDF ko ziba consolidated muri BRD, ariko hari some principles twagomba kugenderaho cyane cyane nuko twifuza ko iyo process yose itagira ingaruka iyo ari yo yose ku bantu babonaga services from BDF, kandi kugeza ubu ngubu turibaza ko byagenze neza, ntabwo turumva complaint ijyanye na service interruption. Ibi ngibi bizanafasha overhead costs zijyanye no kumanaginga ibigega bibiri zigabanuka, hanyuma ubushobozi bwinshi bugashyirwa mu gutanga serivisi z'amafaranga no kunganira ku bijyanye n'ingwate. Kugeza ubu ngubu turumva ko bimeze neza, biragenda neza, kandi turimo turabikurikirana hafi kugira ngo turebe ko icyo twifuza nka leta ariko bizagenda. Murakoze.
Can we get another set of questions? Magnus.
My name is Magnus from Tarifa. I have a question for Deja and one for the two ministers. Deja, I wanted to find out from you this adjustment in the benchmarking. Could you tell us debt to GDP effect, fixed policy eligibility for international financing and rating? What kind of effect does it have on those elements? On that particular question, also explain to us how this rebasing affects planning, especially that we have NST2, we have 2050 blueprint. Now that you have adjusted how you capture the dynamics in the economy, how does this affect the blueprint? And my question for Trade Minister, great to first meet. We have a new policy in the market or in the economy that no single minister has ever given to the public an economic rationale, and that is the closure of night economy. We wanted to find out for the record, what was the scientific base for a government to suddenly close a huge part of the night economy that affects literally hundreds and millions of people's lives. We're talking about transport, entertainment, hospitality. People have lost jobs, businesses have closed. Young people who are working in these businesses that are even students have left school. And government has never come out openly to give us three things. One, what was the scientific rationale for this policy? And for statistics to give us, since the closure of that night economy, what has been the effect, whether positive or negative, a reflection in numbers. And for the Minister of Finance, last week there was a launch of the taxonomy, a fantastic blueprint policy that will guide us in the next coming years on a green economy. There was a revelation that the Green Fund has about $250 million that has not been dispersed. Why? Because the ecosystem has difficulties for her to disperse these funds, to a point where she's even afraid to go back to raise more funds, yet the existing funds are still stocked in banks. She gave one reason, that the criteria for accessing those funds are not really bottlenecks, but like ropes in the neck. We are shooting ourselves in the foot. We have huge stocks of cash for people to access and invest, but we ourselves are limiting ourselves from accessing these funds. Can you explain to us how are we going to get out of this problem? Thank you.
Yes.
Murakoze cyane, nitwa Yasin Tuyishimire, ndi umunyamakuru wa Isango Star. Ndashaka gusobanuza ku bijyanye n'umusaruro wa serivisi. Mu gihembwe nk'iki ngiki umwaka ushize wari wazamutseho 10%, ariko ubu ngubu wazamutse 9%. Mwaza kutubwira ku birebana n'iri gabanuka, ariko noneho by'umwihariko ku birebana na serivisi z'amacumbi n'amaresitora ho wagabanutseho 7%. Mwaza kudusobanurira ibi ngibi byatewe n'iki? Murakoze.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe there's a question that was addressed to the Director General of the Statistics Office, but I think it was supposed to be somewhere else. The one on debt to GDP because of rebasing. So maybe I'll deal with that and also deal with the taxonomy issue, especially the challenges to access resources. Then, of course, the Minister of Commerce can also come in and the Director General can also come in. When the economy is revised, depending on which direction it takes, it has different implications. It can be revised positively, upward. It can be revised negatively, downward. By the beginning of the revision process, you can't tell. You can't tell in which direction it will be revised. But after the revision that you see can be a testament of good quality statistics or not very good quality statistics. If the revisions are very huge, that means you had a problem to begin with in terms of the way you are measuring your economy. Measuring the economy is extremely complex. It is not expected that you can measure the economy 100%. It is very complex. But the extent to which you revise shows to what extent you are accurate with measuring the economy. Ideally, you're supposed to revise the methodologies after 3 years, like the Director General said. But because of different challenges, in this case, specifically, it was because of COVID-19. We were supposed to rebase in 2020. But because of COVID-19, so many things were not able to be done. So instead of 3 years, we are revising after 6-7 years because of cycles of 3 years, 3 years. Now that revision gives us 6% revision upward. There are two good things about that. One, the revision of 6% after 7 years, this is incremental. It's not like every year we miss the economy by 6%, no. It means that by the first year, maybe we deviate by around, on average, less than 1%. We've been deviating less than 1% for every year. So if you're accurate by close to 99%, that is a testament of very good quality statistics. So after 6-7 years, you revise by 6%. So the quality of statistics, the revision, shows that the quality of the statistics was very good. Now, two, the second issue is we like to be conservative in managing the economy. In managing and measuring the economy, you'd rather be conservative than be very optimistic. If you are conservative and the results come that you are better than what you are measuring, that is good news. If you are optimistic and the results come and say, no, waribeshe cyane, ahubwo gabanya, then it becomes a little bit more complicated. So in this situation, being conservative and then revising upward is good news to economic managers. We are a little bit happy. We are a little bit happy because some of the pressures that we thought we have can reduce a little bit. I'm saying a little bit because it doesn't mean that they go away. The pressures are still there. Now, because we've just seen these results today, we are going to go backward and do some calculations. But for example, where you had a debt to GDP of around 80%, maybe now it will be 73%, 78%. So there is a relaxation on some of the critical ratios that we use to manage the economy. And it gives us some breathing space to even navigate even much better. So I think that's the explanation of the implications of revising upward. Now, when you revise downwards, that means the situation becomes tighter. It means if you had a debt to GDP ratio of 80, now it's 80%, now it becomes like 85%. It becomes tighter. It becomes more constraining. That's why it's very important to always be at the conservative side of assumptions when you're dealing with the economy. Because when you're surprised, at least you're surprised with good news. You're not surprised with bad news. Then regarding the challenges to access money, especially green finance, this is a global challenge. At the global level, because most of this financing comes from global partners, at the global level, the conditions, the criteria were designed in a very tight way. So this is a global problem that we see in almost all countries. We don't think it was deliberate. We think at the beginning, at technical level, when those criteria are being put in place, there was no due consideration of how these criteria will complicate, especially countries that operate at our level. And there are many countries that operate at our level. So after these criteria were out, resources mobilized, the people in our countries, the business people that need to access those resources, these resources are mainly not accessed by government. They're supposed to be accessed by the private sector. There are some other windows for government, but these are resources that are supposed to be accessed by the private sector. Because there's an assumption that there is a cost that private sector bears if they aim to be green. So these resources are supposed to mitigate that cost. The good news is at global level, we've come to, almost all of us, we appreciate this challenge, and we're engaging stakeholders globally. Rwanda, other countries, we're engaging stakeholders on these challenges, and we are advocating for a relaxation. We are advocating for a relaxation of some of these terms. Ariko mu Kinyarwanda nkuko mubizi, you saba or urimo gusaba. So we are making a case. We hope it will be heard. Actually, we've already seen signals of relaxation in some areas, but we still have a way to go. We still have a way to go because it's painful to see that we have resources. The criteria are complicated. These criteria are not because of Rwanda, no. They're not because of the private sector in Rwanda, no. It's because of global issues, global conditioning that does not reflect the conditions on the ground. But we're addressing this. You want to follow up?
Yes. Did you conduct like an internal audit that on our side as Rwanda? Have we cleaned our house first before we see the global part? Because we already know some of the criteria that are domestic that are very, they repel even a proposal before it is even considered. Internally, locally, we still have a long list of criteria that is very primitive, prohibitive, and it is just within us. When you look at BRD, you look at the commercial banks, you go through a one page before you go halfway, you're like, no, I can't even submit my proposal. These are not global, they're domestic. And I wanted to know what you know about it and whether before we request the global community to relax their criteria, have we fixed our own house?
The reason I went to the global one, because I know the global situation is work in progress. You know, we've spent the last so many years, 5, 10, 15 years, advocating for good service delivery. And initially, people thought that good service delivery is in government. No, it extends beyond government, even the private sector. So without going into too much detail, we know the challenges that some people face when they go to financial institutions to get services. It looks like they are begging, yet they are bringing a business. When you go to a bank, you're bringing a business. You're not on the begging side. So this is a transition. I don't want to dwell on it. We've been working on it for some time. We have even strong slogans, Kwakirana Yombi, something like that. Yeah. So those slogans have been there for a purpose because we know we have a challenge. So and that will be addressing progressively. But the main challenge here is the global conditions, because those are strong in the prints. So even if you fix this and you can't fix that, it becomes a challenge. Thank you. Minister, you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you very much, Minister. I want to not provide a scientific reason to Mazimhaka, but rather share the good news. There has been no scientific reason to close the night economy, as he mentioned, but I think some of these things that we are observing are the consequences of COVID, because it only came during COVID when, there was a specific time to close business, and then eventually that time has been extended up to 1 a.m. or even 2 a.m. This is probably a question that we may ask to the regulator to find out if there was any adverse consequence to working 24 hours after COVID. But the good news today is that we are reworking the model. As government, we have agreed to mobilize the private sector to work 24 hours where it is possible. We are working on the modalities. We will have intergovernmental consultations, and we also consult the private sector. Very soon, not later than 2 weeks, we should be able to publish what has been agreed across the stakeholders. So the point is, from the economic perspective, if you work 24 hours or even 18 hours, you can easily double your productivity. That's the rationale behind, but you cannot work 24 hours if you don't have support services. So there will be a set of incentives from government, but also private sector has to be mobilized to increase their productivity by working more hours than they are used to. And by doing so, we are creating more jobs, but at the same time, we are also bridging the gap of underutilization of industrial capacity. Today, if you have a machine and you want the machine to work 8 hours the same way a person does, then you are not maximizing the utilization of that machine. And if you work in shifts, the machine can be utilized for 2 or 3 shifts, then it will employ 2 or 3 people instead of employing 1 person. So those are some of the modalities we are working on, and I want to share that as a good news rather than providing a scientific rationale. So there was no intention from government. Thank you.
Magnus, to set the record straight, there was no decision to shut the night economy. That decision has never happened. Maybe a number of policy decisions were taken to regulate some aspects of nightlife, but there was no decision to shut down the night economy. And those regulations were very limited. in very specific areas. For example, entertainment and drinking and responsible and having fun, very small aspect. So confirming what the Minister of Commerce is saying, we are looking again at how we can boost productivity, especially industry. In some countries, industries work 24 hours. Actually, they benefit for better electricity rates of off-peak, complete off-peak period to work at night. But for that to happen, you need other facilitating services like transport, like again, restaurants, like again, everything. So we are reviewing all these things to see how we can chart a way forward to facilitate these aspects. So there was no decision to shut the night economy. And as you know, for every policy position, there's always debate of the pros and cons and reviews. So we hope these discussions will lead to good review of whatever policies were taken and see whether we take them forward as they are or we modify them a little bit or completely reverse them. These are things that can always be reviewed and another position taken. So thank you very much. Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Minister. Magnus, to your question of how the debt to GDP is affected, I think the Minister a bit touched on it. All I can say is that if the level has increased a little bit, therefore the debt to GDP ratio would also decrease. It's a mathematical equation in that sense, given that we have had an increase in the level of 6% compared to the previous period. But the more other question you asked, how this rebasing affects planning, I would say it affects it generally in a positive way. Why? Because it gives another nuanced picture of various components of the economy and how they have evolved. If you recall when I was explaining some changes, for example, I did mention that with agriculture, we do see that the inputs, intermediate inputs into agriculture, the costs have gone high. And we see how this has had an effect on the share of GDP, which has changed from the last value of 23% as a share of total GDP to now 21%. These are now discussions that are going to be followed across all sectors, as Minister mentioned. Basically, what we present is an updated picture of things. With that, different sectors, different leaders across sectors can engage better and refine whatever interventions that are to evolve thereafter. Likewise, when I said under services, there are different activities that have evolved. In communication, we see the share of communication in GDP has gone higher. And what that means is that the different people are going to look at that, meaning Minister of ICT and the others, and understand what has driven that. We'll have discussions, we'll be consulted. So overall, it enhances or refreshes perspectives, understanding on various components of the economy, which therefore refines the appropriate interventions going forward. It does not affect it negatively in any way. As Minister mentioned, Minister, you're right that rebasing sometimes can go either way. Actually, the last rebasing of 2017, the level decreased by 0.8. When we're comparing moving from a reference period of 2014 to 2017, we realized that there was a decrease. So it's not necessarily always going upwards. But as we said, this is after 7 years. And for sure, we have all the evidence and the data that we collect from so many surveys. We see shifts in things. I alluded to, for example, at household level, we see that the value of rent has gone high. If you own a house, 7 years ago, the value of that rent is significantly different from today. So that's why it becomes very paramount to do these activities and see the key changes that have happened somewhere. Maybe other places has reduced, other places has gone up, and therefore you come to an aggregated figure. I hope that enriches what you wanted to understand here. Yasin yabajije changes muri services comparing, I think we're comparing quarter 2 2025 na quarter 2 2024. Nibyo, quarter 2 2024, 12% growth, quarter 2 2025, 9%. Yasin, ahangaha tuba dukompara, n'ubu ngubu iyi quarter 2 twakomparaga na quarter 2 y'umwaka ushize. Iyo ufite igihembwe cyo kompara nacyo cyari cyazamutse hejuru cyane, hari ibyo twita base effect, ni ukuvuga ngo hashobora kuba hari ikiyongeyeho ariko mu gihe kidahagije, mu gihe kitari kinini cyane, ntabwo usanga iyo change noneho iyo growth ari nini cyane. Nugenda ureba ukareba ibihembwe wenda aho waba gukompara n'aho uva hasi, usanga growth. Ariko nkuko Deputy Director General yabivuze, haba na kuri hotels and restaurants aho bavuze activities quota, GDP growth muri quota iba reflecting activities zabaye muri iyo quota ugereranyije na n'iby'ushize mu same quota. So bibaho ko hari quota ushobora gusanga nk'ahangaha kuri restaurants habaye decrease, ariko ntabwo bivuze ngo niko bigiye kuguma. For example, quarter 3 dushobora kubona habaye increase. Noneho icy'ingenzi ni ukuzategereza umwaka wose tukabona ngo change imeze ite. Iyo change yagabanutse, icyo ni ikintu cyo kwibazaho kuri level y'umwaka. Murakoze.
Honorable Ministers, DG, NSR, senior managers, members of the press, this brings us to the end of our press conference. Thank you so much for coming, and see you next time.
Thank you very much.